Hey guys, this is Jan for Chess24, and in this video we're gonna analyze the game between Anish Giri and Baadur Jobava, played in the 5th round of the Wijk Super Tournament. Anish Giri, the Dutch up-and-coming superstar, rated 2.784, playing at home against a crowd favorite Baadur Jobava, 2.727. Has not had a good tournament results-wise so far, only half a point out of 4, but he has entertained everybody with his playing style. Without spoiling too much, I can tell you this game is not gonna disappoint either. Giri starts with one knight f3, moved one d4 players often use, and Jobava, who ran into some trouble with his black openings earlier in the tournament, decides to choose a more reputable one. Today he goes for the King's Indian. Now, after white puts pawn on d4, we suddenly have the main line of the King's Indian on the board: castles, bishop e2, e5, and castles. This is the absolute main line. Giri and, of course, Jobava standing on the shoulders of giants. Garry Kasparov, Bobby Fischer, big fans of this line with the black pieces, while with white, especially after white's next move, the move b4, Vladimir Kramnik has been the main exponent of this system, and he had pretty good results even against Garry Kasparov in the old days. Giri, only 20 years old, but certainly very familiar with the theory of this variation. Jobava goes for the main move. The move knight to h5 might look a bit strange, but black wants to get in f5. That's the main idea in the King's Indian. And to win some time, he also wants to threaten the move knight f4, or even put his knight there, should it turn out to be convenient. White is a choice here. Normally he chooses between the move g3, stopping knight f4, or the move played in the game, the main line once again, the move rook to e1. Bit more subtle. It's directed against knight f4, because then you want to go bishop f1, keeping the queen side, the king side intact without moving your g-pawn. And there have been a lot of discussions over the years in this position. Jobava plays a move that looks totally natural, but it's a bit of a sideline actually, and a bit of a surprise. The move knight to f4. Point is, white just prepared for this by anticipating it and replies with bishop f1. And the problem with having the knight on f4 is twofold in a way. First of all, it's a bit of a nuisance that can be taken followed by e5, especially after the move f5. This is certainly an option. The other problem is that it can be ignored, and the knight on f4 actually doesn't do all that much. In the King's Indian, black wants to build his kingside initiative by pushing all these pawns up the board. The knight on f4 is actually more of a problem doing that, because it stops black from going f5 to f4, while it doesn't help the attack as much as you would wish from this knight. So knight to f4 followed by f5 is a bit of a sideline. Giri chooses the second approach, ignoring this knight and saying it's standing in the way anyway by playing a4. A bit surprised about that. I thought he was gonna take here and then play e5, which last time I checked was supposed to be good for white. But Anish Giri certainly knows his theory in these lines, and he decides to just go for a4 and start building on the queen side. a4 wants to gain more space with a5 before going c5, and also gives this rook access to the a3 square, which often is surprisingly useful. Black goes on building up his position on the king side, plays h6, knight d2, another typical move, overprotecting e4, and more importantly, planning to land on c4 after c5. g5, rook a3, as mentioned. This tends to be a good resource covering the third rank. I believe white is better here. Not so easy for black to proceed, but it is a King's Indian. Crazy things can happen at any point. g4, a5, for now both sides push their pawns up the board. h5, c5, h4, knight to c4. This was the plan, and we can already see white is starting to put the black queen side under serious pressure. Jobava for now is not concerned, goes knight g6, and Giri starts concrete operations with c takes d, knight to b5, attacking the d6 pawn. This pawn is kind of the backbone of black structure. You can't lose that one, so he plays the only move and covers it with rook to f6. Here is where it gets really sharp. Giri now embarks on a move that is probably objectively the best one, so I can't criticize it all that much. The move g3. However, it does open up the king side a little bit, and it does open the door for some tricks from black. Maybe. However, if it works, it works, and the computer does say it's the best move. It does go against the good old rule to not move the pawns on the side you're weaker at, when clearly black is attacking on the king side and white is defending. However, chess is a concrete game, and if it's a good move, it's a good move. It wasn't forced. Bishop e3 is a decent move as well, attacking the a7 pawn. After f takes e, let's say bishop a7. I believe white is better as well. While a move like e takes f5 was also possible. This is a pleasant situation for white. However, g3 is the choice in the game. H takes g and h takes g, which might look like a no-brainer, but actually f takes g might have been a bit safer once again, because the h file doesn't open. After h takes g, we can see that in a perfect world, black would put his rook on h6, his queen on h5, and he could make something happen on this h file, while if you have a pawn on h2 left, then after rook h6, queen on h5, nothing too bad happens. You just have to defend your h2 pawn. So h takes g, once again, might be the strongest move objectively, but is pushing his luck a little bit. Jobava goes a6, asking for a clarification what white is up to on the queen side. And Giri decides to retreat, plays knight c3, saying a6 was a concession. Now I can go knight to b6 whenever I want. So you did not do well playing that move. I'm not sure he thought that, but he's saying I don't need to do anything fancy. I'm better either way. I'm not sure that's true. Maybe he had to go for more drastic measures here with knight to d6, knight takes d6, rook takes d6, knight takes d6, queen takes d6, pawn takes f4. However, the position is not clear. After e takes f4, e takes f5, bishop takes f5. It looks like black has decent compensation, at least in a practical game, for the exchange he is down at the moment. So not that surprising, Giri didn't go for that. Knight b6 is another move that might be good and is the computer's first choice, but you have to be really, really sure before you go for some line like this. Knight b6, rook b8, knight a7, bishop d7, g takes f4, e takes f4. Might be winning for white, but it looks scary. That's kind of the spirit that was created by this move g3, and then especially the move h takes g3, maybe f takes g3 would have led to a clear white advantage without any of the scare. So what's wrong with knight c3? This is the position where Jobava, in my opinion, plays the move of the tournament so far. He can't retreat with his knight. This is out of the question if he goes knight h5. Not only does he lose material after bishop g5, also he just gives up on his attack, and he has no such intention. He plays a brilliant move, knight to h4, self-forking both of his knights on h4 and f4, but it turns out neither of them can be taken. Knight on h4 threatens a big check on f3, so you can't take his brother on f4. Well, if you take the knight on h4, there is rook to h6, and black's dreams become true. Queen takes h4 or queen to h4 will follow. There is no good way to defend the mate. So this would just be winning for black. Knight h4, therefore, of course, a move Giri must have missed, and a very painful one at that. Let's see if we can have a look at how he felt in this position. Here we got Giri contemplating what to do. Sitting up, sitting back down, but it's clearly nothing that he enjoyed at all. Move. Doesn't feel like moving, looks like carved in stone. but this is one of the most unpleasant feelings in chess when your opponent plays a brilliant sacrifice like that and you're sitting there and have to calculate and try to find a way out, which is by no means easy. However, to Giri's credit, he did manage to find his way through this position, thought for half an hour and found the best move. Move knight to e2. This might look like a strange move, but you had to defend against knight f3 check and you had to sort of include more defenders against Black's plan to go rook h6, queen g5, queen h5. For example, knight d2 might look more natural, but it's very passive. And then really there is just rook h6, e takes f, queen g5, say knight to e4, queen to h5. That's all she wrote. G takes h4, queen takes h4, checkmate. So a lot of credit to Anish Giri, who found this move knight e2, which comes down to sacrificing an exchange, but it is at the very least practically the best chance to stay in the game. Knight f3 check, he has to take, don't want to put your king on the h file. Rook takes f3. For now, Jobava is also on top of things. He goes for a very clever intermediate move here, the move knight takes e2 check. The reason is if you go for g takes f3, white comes out with a much more coordinated position after knight f4, ef, bishop f4. White is an exchange down, but he already has the advantage here. d6 is weak, bishop g5 is a threat, queen takes f3 is in the air. Would not be a good idea for black. So Jobava plays, of course he calculated all this. Knight takes e2 check first, bishop takes, and g takes f3, bishop takes f3. When the position is settled, white is an exchange down. He has one pawn for the exchange. Black has to think of ways to keep the attack going on the king side, because if black just wants to stabilize, white has more than enough compensation. The b6 square is weak. There is ideas with bishop g5 in the air. Long term, even the black king could turn out to be a little weak. So it's by no means a totally winning position for black. And Jobava chose the move bishop to h6, which makes a lot of sense, stopping bishop g5 and also exchanging this bishop from g7, which was a bit passive against its white counterpart. Knight to b6, of course, rook to b8, and Giri played a nice move, the move king to g2, in no particular hurry, vacating this h1 square for his rook. So white is saying, wait a minute, I have some ambitions on the king side as well. Next move, bishop takes c1, is a move I'm not very fond of. I'm not sure it's a serious mistake, but it does make white's life a bit easier. Queen takes c1 is forced, now queen g5 is threatened. Queen could even make its way to c7 in some lines, and it's hard to stop rook h1 as well. So I believe here white is fully coordinated, and at least he doesn't have problems. Instead, after king g2, maybe black should have thought about the move queen to f8, which at least stops rook h1 because there is f takes e4 ideas in the air. So it wouldn't have been that easy for white to proceed. Even here it's not clear white is worse. The machine says knight takes c8 is possible with equality. It says rook h1 giving up the f2 pawn is even possible. But I believe this would at least have asked a lot more questions than the move played in the game. Bishop c1, queen c1, f4, of course this was the intention, cutting the queen off from the g5 square. Rook h1, rook to g6, very natural as well, making way for queen g5, but this is not allowed. Giri plays rook h5. Nice move, planning to create a battery on the h file. So Giri has fought back pretty well after this knight h4 shock, and this position is by no means clear. Jobava plays the best move yet again. He goes queen to f8. Looks a bit passive, but you can't put your queen on a more active square, let's say queen f6, because queen c7 picks up material. So you had to go queen f8 when queen c7 is not a big deal because, well, actually it's a cute little trick. Rook to g7, asking the queen, please take my rook, and now there is bishop h3 check, followed by queen takes b8, and black wins material. There's always tactics behind everything. So Giri saw that, did not go queen c7, went queen h1 instead, threatening to win the queen himself with queen rook h8 check. Jobava played queen f6, which is good. Queen g7 was also possible, but then queen h4 is a move he did not want to allow. However, after queen f6, it turns out there's not really a threat black has. And I really like Giri's next move from a practical perspective. Just plays the move queen to h2, reinforcing his g3 pawn. Asking black, what do you want to do next? Because it turns out black can't move all that much. This rook can't move, this bishop has only one move, bishop g4. That is the natural move in the position and the move played, but it turns out that it is a losing mistake. So Giri, in a way, managed to provoke this move by just playing the quiet queen h2. The only solution to this position was to play a bit passively f takes g, and now queen g7. And it turns out that white probably has nothing better than the move queen h4. Now black can go back with queen f6. Probably it would end peacefully after a move repetition here. Nothing that is all that easy to spot over the board, and also it's not really according to Baadur's taste, who likes to play actively, and of course was not thinking about a draw here, but probably he had to, because bishop g4, as played in the game, is losing. Bishop takes g4, rook takes g4, queen to h3. This is the problem. Jobava maybe was hoping for the move knight to d7. Actually, it was also not too bad, so I'm not sure he should have hoped for it, because after queen g6, now black is attacking the e4 pawn. Even this is not clear if it's great for black after the move f3. It seems like white is coming out on top anyway. But queen h3 is much stronger and much cleaner. The point is, this rook can't really move. If it goes anywhere, now rook g6, knight d7 is just crushing, because there is no queen g6 anymore. Rook g7 doesn't help because of rook h8 check. So the rook can't move. Black has to go queen to g6. When there is still hope, queen g6 gives up control of the h8 square, but after rook h8, king f7, rook takes b8, it turns out that black has a perpetual check. By sacrificing not one but both of his rooks, rook takes g3, f takes g3, queen takes e4, and now thanks to rook takes g3, first of all there's no f3 anymore, and the white king is so exposed he can't avoid perpetual check. But the problem is, Giri is not forced to cash in just yet, and he's very aware of that too. Let's have a look at him pondering his next and final move. He can't quite pull the trigger, but he will eventually. There he is, his hand over the king. Levon Aronian walks by. Giri reconsiders once again. I think he's planning to do it. We got a little cut. He's still thinking, but we can see by the body language that he is extremely confident. And once again, no, he didn't do it. We're switching to Magnus Carlsen, but finally he did execute the move he wanted to play. After queen g6, he came up with king f3 after some more consideration, and this ends the game. Rook on g6 is hanging. Rook on g4 is hanging, I'm sorry. And if it moves, rook to g5, now there is just no more counterplay for black, because of the rook h8 check, king somewhere, rook takes b8. The king has covered the e4 pawn, stopping any black tricks with queen takes e4 check, with rook takes g3, followed by queen takes e4. So he's just a piece down, and not only that, he would also get checkmated very soon, since white will overtake the initiative here as well. That's why Baadur Jobava resigned after king f3. There's just nothing he can do. A very sad end for him after this fantastic move he played earlier in the game. The move knight h4. Let's show that once again, just because it's so beautiful. Self-forking both of his knights and leading to a very strong attack. Credit to Anish Giri, who managed to find the defense, stay in the game, and then came out on top in the time trouble. Anish Giri wins this game, which leads to him having 3 points out of 5, while Baadur Jobava is at the bottom of the table, only has half a point out of 5, but has certainly played very interesting chess throughout the tournament. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Oh, by the way, if you want to learn more about the King's Indian defense, I can highly recommend the Chess 24 series by Robin van Kampen, who happens to be Anish Giri's training partner. Go check it out on chess24.com. I'll see you there or here in my next video commentary. Bye, everybody.